This week's economic data shows the economy is in more trouble than most imagined. The economy entered a recession in the second quarter. It shrunk by 0.7% in the second quarter, following the 2.6% contraction that was revised in the first quarter.
The slowdown was as a result of a drag in the agriculture sector. The sector is in recession after it contracted by over 29% in the second quarter. It was down by almost 34% in the first quarter. Experts say the delay in summer rains and harvests, as well as the effects of the drought in the Western Cape, are to blame. But there is hope that the sector will bounce back.
This year, we were expecting that agriculture could somewhat perform around about positive 4% on a year-on-year basis. But obviously, we will relook at those numbers, because yesterday's number, for example, our expectations were that there will be a negative contraction of about 19%. So the magnitude of yesterday was somewhat a little bit of a surprise. But when we really look closely at the numbers, maybe we missed a bit of a boat there, because as we saw the harvest being delayed as it comes on in the commercial silos, we somewhat maybe could have adjusted on that. So I would still believe that at the end of the year, we might end in positive territory in agriculture.
The manufacturing industry also contracted. That was due to mainly the decrease in the production of motor vehicles, parts and accessories. Some positivity came from modest growth in the mining industry and finance, as well as real estate and business services sector. The weak economic growth numbers raises the threat of an even larger budget deficit and further sovereign credit rating downgrade. Moody's said the weaker than expected economic performance will exacerbate fiscal and monetary challenges. The agency projects real growth at 0.7% to 1% for this year.
Moody's, I think, they're the last of the major credit agencies to issue a credit report on South Africa. They said that if we enter a recession, there will be a chance of being downgraded. What does that mean? This all is linked up, so one factor ripples through to the next one. That would mean that it would be harder to access global funding, to fund the economy, to fund development and industry and commerce.
The ruling ANC says it's concerned with the employment implications of the current environment. It's called for a stimulus package to be implemented immediately and for support to sectors that will rapidly create jobs.
Our macroeconomic policy must act in concert in the interest of overarching goals of economic growth and development. More than ever, we will have to closely coordinate fiscal and monetary policy so as to foster sustainable growth. Develop and support those industries that would rapidly absorb employment, domestic and African-focused growth, and this may include tax credit for those companies that invest in sustainable job creation.
The rand weakened against major currencies following Stats SA's announcement of the GDP figures. It touched 15.50 rand against the dollar, but it bounced back to about 15.30 rand to the dollar after the Reserve Bank data showed that the current account deficit narrowed in the second quarter. It narrowed to 3.3% of GDP in the second quarter from a revised 4.6% of GDP in the first quarter on the back of improved exports. The price of petrol went up by 5 cents a litre this week. That was after the Minister of Energy's intervention for government not to increase prices according to the under-recovery, but to increase the prices by 5 cents only to accommodate the wage increases of pump attendants, cashiers and administrative staff at service stations. Stats SA will next week announce the manufacturing, production and sales data, as well as the mining production figures. It will also release the retail trade sales for July. SABC News, Johannesburg.